man joining us on the Book Talk segment of the show today. Great to welcome. Man has written a very interesting book, sort of a political book, but also a bit historical as well. It's called Mark Twain's Tale of Today. Haley's Comment Returns, the celebrated author critiques American politics. We're joined by Ambassador Donald Bliss today from up in the nation's capital. And Donald, thanks for joining us. How are you today?
Very nice to be here. Thank you.
Good to have a chance to chat with you for a few minutes. I know as we record this today, I think a lot of people's minds, particularly up in your area, a little bit north of you, are with the storm, Hurricane Sandy. But as you told me before we went on, not too bad in the nation's capital, right?
No, it seems to have mostly missed us. We got some trees come down on houses, but fortunately they missed ours, so we're okay this morning. Just a lot of rain, a little flooding. New Jersey and New York got hit a lot harder, I'm afraid.
Yeah, that's a shame up there. Very unusual. Usually you get the hurricanes, more used to it down here in Florida, and particularly this time of the year, you think that's all gone, but very late storm, very, very strange weather.
Yeah, dumping all kinds of snow in West Virginia, too. You don't see that in a hurricane very often.
No, snow and rain and all that. But anyway, I want to talk about your book. I had a chance to read through it. Very interesting historically, but also kind of apropos to today. Mark Twain, of course, people know, the great humorist, author, but he also had a lot of thoughts on politics over the year, particularly when he did his shows. He'd make humorous comments, but in your book, you had some serious commentary on politics. It must have been kind of interesting to do the research on that.
Yeah, it was kind of fun. It combines two of my interests. I've always been interested in Mark Twain, and since I've worked in Washington for 40 years, I've seen how it works or doesn't work. And Mark Twain had a lot of perceptive things to say about it 150 years ago, which still ring true today.
Yeah, just reading through it, you almost think, if you didn't know it was Mark Twain talking, he could be on one of the cable channels now making those comments, right?
That's my feeling. In some ways, he was America's first talking head, and I think a lot of what he had to say is wise, or maybe wiser than what you hear on cable TV or on Jon Stewart. Jon Stewart has certainly carried on the humorous side of it, but I think beneath those witty maxims of Mark Twain was a lot of depth and understanding of what the problems were.
I didn't realize till I read through the book that he, Mark Twain, or Sam Clemens, his real name, himself had a little bit of interest in running for office at one time, didn't he?
Well, yeah, there were a lot of, he wrote some satires about running for governor and Mark Twain running for president, which was really to make fun of the negative advertising, because he thought that elections in some ways were a waste of time, because the candidates really didn't want to grapple with the issues that were important to people, but they wanted to mischaracterize their opponent's position and demonize their opponents. And so he wrote an article about running for governor, in which he said that he was a squeaky clean candidate who was going to run against the Tammany Hall political machine, corrupt machine, but they tarnished his reputation with all these false allegations, and he had to withdraw from the race as a tarnished, damaged candidate, even though, for example, they said he was a drunken and disorderly, although he didn't drink. He told her that he had did some terrible thing in Montana, a place he'd never been. But his whole point was that the negative campaigning and the demonizing of the opposition will destroy character. He once said that a lie can travel halfway around the world before the truth can get its shoes on. And that was well before the internet.
I was going to say, yeah, way before negative TV ads, and of course now with the internet, rumors spread more in seconds rather than hours or days, right? Was it difficult, or how did you go about doing some of the research on more of his political writings? Well, I guess that's, it was public record, I suppose, but how did you kind of delve into that?
Well, Mark Twain was such a prolific writer. In fact, some of his work still isn't published. And the Mark Twain Project out in Berkeley, California, has many of his papers, although they're spread out at different places. And most people don't realize, when he was a young man, he came to Washington and worked for a senator from Nevada, Republican Senator Stewart of Nevada. And he didn't last too long. One of his jobs was to write letters on behalf of the senator. And this small town in Nevada wrote in and said, we'd like to have a post office. The senator said, would you respond to try to talk them out of it? And so Twain wrote back and he said, you don't need a post office. That's a terrible idea. What you need is a nice jail or maybe a brothel. So that kind of work as a senator's aide. He was fired after about a month, but he stayed on in the Capitol and he reported from Washington, D.C. So I've gotten copies of the newspaper reports. Some have been destroyed or lost, but the newspaper reports that he made from the Capitol and the letters that he wrote home. He wrote 50,000 letters.
Wow.
In those days, before email, people used to actually write letters. And so there's a tremendous repository of his thinking as it's developed and evolved over time. As he moved from a governor in a slave-holding border state of Missouri to New England, and his views on many issues changed 180 degrees.
I guess with the Nevada situation, he kind of foresaw Las Vegas, right? Sin City.
Right. Well, he went out to Nevada because he basically, he was the riverboat pilot. Most people think of him as Sam Clemens, the riverboat pilot from Mississippi. But then when the war came, the blockade stopped the travel, and he joined briefly a Confederate militia, but he deserted after 2 weeks. They were constantly retreating with Colonel Ulysses S. Grant in pursuit, so he quit. And he landed up going out to Nevada with his brother Orion, who had supported Abraham Lincoln. Sam Clemens did not support Abraham Lincoln, but his brother did, and he paid his brother's way out west, and Orion became the secretary to the Nevada Territory. And then when Nevada became a state, which Lincoln really wanted to happen because they wanted the silver and gold to help pay for the Civil War, and they wanted the support of the free state of Nevada. Sam Clemens' brother ran for secretary, but he made the mistake of running on a prohibition ticket. So, although he was quite popular when he was secretary of the Nevada Territories, when he decided to run for secretary of the state of Nevada, he didn't get a single vote because prohibition was not something that they were too interested in out there.
No, I've been watching that show Boardwalk Empire. I don't know if you've seen that on HBO, very similar about prohibition then. So, yeah, anytime a place like Atlantic City or Nevada, they didn't want that.
Right.
What would you say Mark Twain would be considered today as far as a pundit? Would he be considered a liberal pundit, conservative, down the middle, or what would you think?
One of the great things about Mark Twain is, he's got a quote for almost any purpose. I think the Tea Party could quote him, and the Occupy Wall Street could quote him, liberal commentators could quote him, and conservatives, because, and I think it's impossible to tag him with a label.
Mm-hmm.
He was very much against political parties, incidentally. He never joined a political party. He thought that the trouble with parties is that politicians and voters put loyalty to party ahead of loyalty to country. And therefore they engaged in sort of trench warfare against each other and forgot that they were there to serve the national interest and what's best for the people of the United States. And he was very critical about political parties. And I guess he would have been called a 19th century liberal as the mature Sam Clemens. But after that, he had a great faith in the free enterprise system. But he thought the free enterprise system worked if people were innovative and inventive and entrepreneurial. But he was very much opposed to the robber barons of the Gilded Age. That was the title of his first novel that my great-grandfather actually published, The Gilded Age, which has given the name to that period when Americans were obsessed with making money and greed. And he really attacked the Jay Goulds and the Commodore Vanderbilts because of their abusive monopolistic practices. On the other hand, he absolutely idolized Thomas Edison and Alexander Graham Bell and the people who invented it. He thought that was the strength of the free enterprise system. So he believed that, and he was very skeptical of government. He thought that government too easily was corrupted. And certainly during the Gilded Age, there's plenty of evidence that his boss, when he worked for a senator from Senator Stewart, was a fine man, but he was chairman of the Pacific Railroad Committee in the Senate, and he was paid money by the Central Pacific Railroad to look after their interests, and it wasn't considered to be a problem in those days. And I guess my book goes into today, you have to be an idiot to accept a legal bribe because there's so many lawful ways to raise money for your campaigns. You got super PACs and leadership PACs and so many ways that a senator has to raise, $9 million for an election. That's $4,000 every single day of his 6-year or her 6-year term, unless they happen to be a multimillionaire to finance their own campaign. So they spend 50 to 70% of their time raising money, and they delegate the legislative business to their congressional aides or to the lobbyists who write the legislation for them. So it's a system that is very much corrupted by money today, different ways, despite all the statutes and regulations, as it was in the Gilded Age. And so Mark Twain was very skeptical of government and the ability of government because of the human nature's corrupting influence in the political process.
Yeah, fascinating. I mean, as things have changed, things have stayed the same in politics too, which interesting that you point that out in the book. It'd be fun to hear what he'd have to say leading into the election coming up next week, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, he once said that if you want to see human nature at its worst, just observe it during election time. So I guess you probably feel that way about this one, too.
Yeah. I guess if television was around then, he would have gravitated toward that. I mean, he went around and gave shows back then for sold tickets, right? So he would have done that probably, right?
Certainly. I mean, he was charismatic and dressed in a white suit and the ever-present cigar and white shoes and a white cravat. You know, he was very charismatic and would have been a great television personality.
The name of the book is Mark Twain's Tale of Today. Haley's Comet Returns. The celebrated author critiques American politics. You've been talking with Ambassador Donald Bliss today. And Donald, appreciate you taking a few minutes. Do you have a website that can get a hold of the book or get a hold of you?
No, I haven't started a website yet. The best place to find it is Amazon.com. And under my name or Mark Twain's Tale of Today. And one of these days I'll get around to doing a website too. But
great.
Brand new.
Yeah, it just came out, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to be interested in what Twain had to say. And Donald, appreciate you taking a few minutes again, and stay dry up there in D.C., and hopefully we can talk to you again sometime.
Great. Well, I've enjoyed it. Thanks so much.
Great.